Hello. Hello. I think we found ourselves once again in a place in the SoundCloud.
Mhm.
You have used your device to listen to men talk about little dolls and the
Yes,
big art of fighting on a tabletop known as Age of Sigmar.
that's true.
Yeah. If you've made it this far, you already probably know this is Always Strikes Late, which is
Mhm.
the Always Strikes Last variation. We record late at night and get a
Yep.
little bit zanier, or at least give ourselves a license to. And
Mhm.
today you have myself and Rocco.
Hello
Hello.
again.
And our
Uh,
special guest, Omar Kuzrahi. Welcome, Omar.
Hello.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, we thought tonight, guys, we'd give you a little bit of a punchy themed episode to make sure we, occasionally kind of focus on the topic that is near to all of our hearts, as we try to live normal life and also play tournaments and go to war games and build up our repertoire of skills here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Matt is taking a break. Miles is still lost in the fogs of Ireland.
The Iosphere.
And
Yes, I think
and
that's
everyone else they're on the West Coast. So this is an East Coast takeover, baby.
exactly. East Coast takeover night. And
Yeah.
so, Omar's a pretty prominent local player here in the Boston
Mhm.
area and member of Wicked Dicey. And he and I were chatting.
Wicked.
Yeah, at a local tournament when I had a chance to play recently. And the topic came up. It seemed like a really good one, I think, for all of you guys out there in our listener universe, which
Mhm.
is the journey of how to find the army that fits your play style and kind of all of the subtopics around that. Because when you get into playing war games, you hit the table and there's stuff you want to do that's fun for
Yep.
you, or that your lizard brain makes you want to like immediately take a knee-jerk reaction towards. And not all the things you can lovingly paint up and build cool lists around that may or may not be effective are doing that.
Mm.
And it's a whole thing. So Omar is a master of this. He's really, quite accomplished. He goes on the tabletop and it kicks butt. And I've seen
Mhm.
him,
Takes names
here to
too.
Manny and I, take many names and put them in the bag.
Yep.
There have been times in the past when, from what he has told me, not to
Mhm.
bury the lead too much here, Omar,
Yeah.
there has been a journey to the best alignment. So to take it away, tell us a bit about yourself, about your journey in Wargame,
Yeah.
and how you got into AOS.
So I started wargaming in 2018 with 40K like everyone. I thought Space Marines were the coolest thing. And
Yep.
then I started playing AOS in 2019. My first army was Flesh Eater Courts. And what really struck me about them was how you didn't have to stick with the ghouls. You didn't have to stick with like this big hordy undead. You could actually do quality over quantity in second edition. I
Yes.
remember having the two Terrorgeists, both mounted, and then a bunch of horrors, and you had a lot
Mhm.
of rerolls, and it was a very killy army. And it was
Mhm.
nice where I could use movement tricks, I could get around, but fundamentally, this was an army that had a few hammers that looked at something and hit the delete button 9 times out of 10. And
Yep.
part of my background is I fight MMA competitively, and the way I like to describe my style is it's very aggressive but intelligent and precise. Right? I
Fuck
want to
yeah.
fight you. I want to get in your face, but it's not mindless.
Nice.
And the
Gotcha.
lists I tend to play in war games tend to have that theme of you can't make any mistakes because where in a utility heavy list or something with a lot of mobility like Deepkin or Zinch, you can get away with some minor mistakes by a teleport during your opponent's hero
Yeah.
phase, a cast, etc. With something like Slaves to Darkness, especially the build that I typically run, you can't. Any mistake is going to cost you the game. You
Okay.
effectively have to be flawless, but it rewards playing an aggressive and mean play style. So I started with Flesh Eater Courts. They
Mhm.
rewarded that. It was fun. The
Mhm.
nerf bat came in. They lost their fight twice. They lost a lot of
Yep.
fun stuff.
Yep.
And I started looking at orcs. And Iron Jaws specifically were fun in that you could be really tricksy with how you set up fighting
Mhm.
because
Yep.
smashing
Yep.
and bashing let you fight in the hero phase in second edition. And I
Yeah.
was still getting new to AOS. I was understanding the movement tricks. I was still new to wargaming in general. But I remember there was one round in a tournament where I had everything set up. I got the double turn and
Mhm.
was able to have effectively my entire army fight because of uh, a command ability that's escaping me and smashing and bashing
Mhm.
triggering
Yep.
me and kind of taking the game. And that was my
I,
first
I
like
also
real,
remember that combo, but can't remember the
yeah,
names. I get the addition creep, like well.
yeah.
Mhm.
So third edition kind of lost me where I couldn't find any armies that I liked and wanted to play. And I went on a tear in 40K instead and played with my Chaos Knights and World Eaters.
Terrible
And
decision. So sorry, no judgment.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But
Did you at least like the new World Eaters that came out?
They were
You
pretty
oh
cool,
my
I
god,
think.
I love them.
I'm gonna say I've
I
gotten my ass
love
kicked
them.
in by them before too. They're great.
Did you paint an Angron?
Oh
You
yeah.
must have. Yeah,
Oh my
I
god.
mean,
Oh.
that's why you do it. So,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
No,
Awesome.
it's I love them because World Eaters fit that same style of
Mhm.
high reward, but
Mhm.
like stupid high skill floor. And I
Yeah.
remember I won multiple games with my whole army table.
Oh
And
shit.
it was and it was just
That's
because
the
of the way
best feeling.
yeah, and it was the way secondaries were structured and all that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sure.
When I went back to AOS after like the kind of 9th edition, 10th edition creep happened,
Mhm.
I started with Oops All Dragons. And
That's a
that
solid thing.
it's a solid list, but it's hard to pilot.
Yeah.
And I get laughed at when I bring them to the table, and then I win. And I remember there was one tournament I won. It was right before the last book of Third came out with
Mhm.
the Wizards. It was a tournament Alpha Omega, and Corn was the big scary thing at the time. And the thing is where I would spend so much time pre-measuring and making sure that it's like, no matter what you do, you're not getting in front of me. You're not pulling me out of combat, etc. I was able to pull off a lot of shenanigans because it rewarded that play style. Sure, I didn't have any casting.
Mhm.
I kind of was just out of a phase for the game,
Sure.
but it didn't matter because when you can shoot things off the table, when you can shoot twice and put in the effort to shoot twice, and you have a way to get battle tactics through,
Mhm.
you can do a lot, and it throws people off. You're not like, I don't think I ever came first with Oops All Dragons because I was always dropping a battle tactic,
Mhm.
but I typically tabled my opponent by turn 2.
Yeah, but
Or
that
turn
It
is
was
three.
it was a quick victory if
effective.
you executed it right, which does sort of seem like the theme you were describing when it comes to like, that style of like Slaves to Darkness list or that old ghoul
Mhm.
list where it's like, hey, I can push this up, and if it all works, you're gone, and we're getting a beer or a soda, and we have some time
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
Or I make a minor error, and it concatenates from there. But like that's very much like a hammer scalpel kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a hammer scalpel is actually the best way to describe it. And
Mhm.
we need a t-shirt for that, by the way. We need hammer scalpel t-shirts now.
Yeah. We need a few t-shirts and a hat, Miles.
Yeah, I mean, Miles and Matt, when they
When
edit
they
this
graphic
and
design,
this,
it's their
yeah,
passion.
we'll make some notes.
that's
We're just the
beautiful.
pretty faces here.
Yeah.
We just talk a lot.
It's true. Minor aside, because we're talking
Yeah.
about t-shirts, and I cannot avoid, plugging this,
Oh,
guys.
no.
We do have a merch shop. Obviously, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. You enjoy the episode,
And a
what comes
Patreon
after.
if you want to get
Yep.
in our Discord. We've got a
Yep,
TTS league we're getting going and all kinds of stuff.
We have everything
Hobby
from
hangouts, get motivation to
oh, yeah.
paint.
We have the TTS league coming on.
Yep,
everything from just Discord access all the way up to the OnlyFans level where you get a little extra. You have to look at the page to find out what that is. But
all right, stop with the plugging. We're done with the plugging.
We're done.
I mean,
plugging.
I'll help with the plugging and say Jack's a great player, and if he's in that league, you should join.
Yeah,
He's one of those names where if I see him on BCP and it's me, I want to cry a little.
oh.
I am flattered and thank you, Omar. But yes, enough of my shameless promotion of our page.
Hey, I helped too,
shorts and
damn it.
booty shorts, but
Our shameless promotion, Matt. All right?
Indeed.
Back to you, Omar.
But-
So
back to you, Omar. So
yeah,
what are you looking
Hammer
for in a list?
So I'm
With
looking
the
for
scalpel bit.
So it's, I guess the way I like to think about it is it's hammer and anvil,
Yeah.
but you need to use the anvils correctly. When you say hammer and anvil, people always think of the anvil's going to stay in the backfield. I think my favorite version of my list with Slaves to Darkness this edition, a unit of 6 for Vanguard, Bellacore, 2 units of Warriors. Where I've actually been struggling is you can't fit in that second unit of Warriors. I've replaced them with Theridons, which do nothing. They
die quick or they kill quick. One or the other.
They don't even kill quick. That's my
Not
issue
anymore?
with the Theridon. Yeah, and 10 chosen.
Oh, Matt and I have some thoughts on Theridons, but that's a different.
Theridons have let me down too many times. So at Everwinter, my Theridons did nothing.
Oh no!
How many did you bring to? Actually, that's a good question. What did you bring for your Everwinter list with the Theridons? This was maybe a variation.
Just 3 Theridons.
Oh yeah, they're swinging. They can move the
Yeah.
world, or they do nothing.
Yeah. Oh.
But
Yeah,
the
I see your thing. Okay.
But it's always like you need your hammers and your anvils.
Yeah.
Be'lakor does two things functionally. He gives the Vanguard a 3d6 charge, and he turns off your unit for 1 turn or 2 if they take the double.
Yes.
That's really it. That's all he's there for. And if that is all he does, he's paid for his points on my end. But what you kind of want to do is you want to go, these are what I'm going to use to remove you from the game. And then these are the pieces that are going to jam you up, score, do miscellaneous. I've spent a CP to run warriors up the board to take the flanks. I've had a unit of warriors run up the board to do attack on 2 fronts. Like, they're not necessarily going to get anywhere or do any damage, but they're still there as scoring pieces. But then I also need the ability to get around. Chosen are slow, which is why Jack can tell you he's watched me redeploy Chosen on my opponent's turn every time.
Just for the free movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for the free
100%.
movement towards
Inching them up.
No, that is more people need to do that with their slower hammers to just redeploy. Like, even if like fighting's on the other side of the board. No, I'm just rolling up just to get up there just a little bit quicker.
Yeah. I mean, it functionally turns your 3d6 charge into a 4d6 charge.
Yes.
Plus 5 inches.
It's really is true on that. I mean, like little shenanigans of those slower units, anything you get, like the sergeants, you know, a counter charge into something which gives you like a swing accuracy, all of a sudden 5 inches closer.
Yep.
All of that, totally agreed. But
even
continue.
if it's into Sylvaneth trees, an endless spell that got moved up, take whatever free movement you can just to reposition yourself to set up for your turn, especially on an opponent's turn.
Yeah, and I'll give you this. A friend of mine plays Zinch, and he used to throw the chains, the endless spell, at the Chosen because they were kind of like the front line. And then he realized that he was like, I would redeploy, and even if I rolled a 6, I would keep a unit or I'd keep a couple of models in range to get 3 inches of movement.
Yeah, he's just a free pile-in.
Yeah, it's just it's free everything all the time. Yeah. But I think the other piece of it too is you need to have a plan for where your hammers are going. For me, the Vanguard are always the opening gambit. People talk about Chosen whenever I'm talking to folks, other Slaves players or potential opponents. Everyone keeps talking about Chosen. And I understand why, because it's 40 attacks and each 6 is 2 mortal wounds.
Yep.
The Chosen are kind of like I call them the cleanup crew. And that's how I look at them, treat them, and refer to them. What I find is like the true hammer in my list is the Vanguard. I don't think there's ever been something that the Vanguard have charged that's bounced, except one time where I think I rolled 10 ones to hit.
Yeah,
and you can't, that you just
you're
just not doing it.
Yeah, that's just not your game at that moment. Like the fates have decided it, really.
It was funnily enough, it still was my game, just not in the way I expected.
That's true.
But it's like people always kind of like to look at people do the math wrong because they look at the 40 attacks. And while yes, 6 Vanguard only have 24 attacks, they're 3 damage at Ren 2. And in Age of Sigmar, Ren 2, the difference between Ren 1 and Ren 2 is a universe.
It's horrendous. Yeah,
it's comical.
Yep.
And even if you're all out attacking, all out defensing, it's still a lot, especially if like you get 2 or 3 6s. That's 9 mortals. That's 9 damage that's just going through that you have to ward maybe.
Yep. That's a very good point. I mean, like in terms of like the comparison to those 2 hammers, outside of like, the volume, that Ren 1 versus that Ren 2 with Chosen bounces sometimes. If you don't get a good bunch of 6s, even with high volume attacks, and something has a chunky armor save and it has been able to all defense, sitting there on a 3-up, you're just like sweating bullets, hoping they don't Space Marine their way through your plan.
Yes.
And that's kind of the more frustrating piece. I mean, Jack, in our game, you shut down the Vanguard. Everyone usually shuts down the Chosen. And had you not shut down the Vanguard for a turn, it would be a very different game. They would have they swept through the board.
100%. That's a good point, really, to the way you play your list. Is I also play Slaves of Darkness, so I'm a little more familiar with them than some others. But the thing about those 2 hammers is the Chosen are a good hammer, but they're slow as fuck, and the Vanguard are much more forgiving. You can hammer a lot more stuff around the board because they're really quick, especially when you can mark up Slanesh them or whatever, which you did. So I just couldn't afford that. I couldn't afford them going anywhere.
No. But and then I'll say this. So the list I brought to Captain Con to kind of talk about the importance of styles.
Out in Rhode Island.
Yeah. Another key thing for me is my list getting online when I want it to and having the option to fight. The way I had my list set up in Captain Con was the Chosen had the Dread banner instead of the Slanesh banner. I had 5 knights, a unit of knights, instead of the Theridons or warriors or something else. And I had the Field Marshal with the Chosen, the Lord, to give them the extra 2 inches of movement. That list was kind of built with the thought process in mind of, you have an easy way to score the flanks between Be'lakor, between Be'lakor, the Varangard, and the Knights. The Knights are better on paper because they have the extra rend on the charge and they get the extra damage and all that fun stuff. What I find is the Knights don't hit super hard. They just because them being fast doesn't actually change my game plan, because take the flanks isn't always an option for what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to pilot my list.
Yeah, depending on the map you're playing on too. The deployments might be funky and you only have like far corners of the board, and it pulls your army away from scoring objectives and fighting.
And the other thing is, like, Ordained Charge exists, Attack on 2 Fronts exists, Seize the Center exists, Slay the Entourage. Like, there's so many ways for me to score without thinking about what I like to call a utility hammer, that something like Furies just don't make sense.
Yeah, for your style, definitely.
No. But what it was is I was telling Jack this after our game. I'm used to the Chosen being online at the start of the game with the Slanesh banner. Sure, my opponent can take commands, but I have a 3d6 charge and an extra attack on said charge. The Varangard always start the game with Mark of Corn now, because they have that 4th attack, assuming I get the 3d6 charge off. Yes. So now there's a world where I'm 3d6 charging both my hammers turn 1.
Yeah.
And I'm a 1-drop, so I'm usually going second.
Which is great.
Yeah, but I get to set the cadence of the game. There are some times where depending on what my opponent does, I'll take a very conservative turn 2 and drop a battle tactic, and just knowingly drop a battle tactic to stage for the next turn. With the math being, if you can't score, who cares?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the key factor. It's I want to win by killing you. I think what was the phrase? You can't score if you're dead, typically.
Yeah.
No, it's great wisdom here there.
And it's unlike other armies I've played in the past. Slaves to Darkness is kitted in a way that they can kill you quickly and prevent you from scoring quickly.
Yeah. So this is an interesting thing. Let's take a moment to talk about, in terms of like how things raid against, the scalpel hammer, the hammer scalpel kind of like ideal. So I think we know that the Slaves of Darkness kind of version you have right now is probably where it's gotten to, is like the best fit so far. We had a couple other armies. Let's kind of rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 and to see like what's closest to that and maybe where they fell short or they were almost there. So if Slaves to Darkness is like a 9 or 10, 9 out of 10, with that particular hammer heavy style, hammer scalpel style you're going with.
Yeah.
What about some of the others? If I remember correctly, we had the ghouls initially, then we had the Iron Jaws at a certain point with the Trixie Bastion. And then I remember you playing Sylvaneth and like re-racking against Hill in the tournament I was running,
What happened with Sylvaneth here? Where'd they fall off? They've got the run and charge Belfano stuff, right?
Yeah, and it was more fun in third. So Sylvaneth are an interesting one. I think
Start with Sylvaneth. Yeah.
So I will just say that rating in general depends on the GHB we're playing it.
At the time you're playing it is totally fine, because obviously this is across a couple of years and things really do change. So
So Sylvaneth the issue wasn't with Sylvaneth per se. The issue was with how ridiculous the rest of the game got.
Okay.
So what I was running was 6 bows, Scythes, Belthanos, the Branch Witch, and something else that I can't remember. The little teleporty troops.
Sure, tree revs.
And the idea was what the Scythes touch, they should kill. And they had Rend 3, 2 damage apiece each.
Yep.
It was very easy for you to get them +1/+1. So 2s and 2s, 4 attacks each.
And you could strike and fade and do all your thing.
But and I had the bugs that struck first when they charged.
Oh sure, the Lancers.
Oh yeah, those guys. Burn Gullies.
So functionally,
yes, the Ferngullies.
Yes, and so functionally, the way the game should have been was there shouldn't have been anything that statistically should have survived the Ren 3 burst from the scythes with how they were costed, with the damage, etc. The problem is the way, one, the GHB we were playing in was set up, and two, just kind of where third edition got. You could stack up to +4.
Yeah.
And then my Ren 3 becomes useless. And then you have armies with 4 upwards across the board, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And that was a Merciless Blizzard codex.
Yeah.
Too.
It was.
Yeah. And
I don't miss that at all.
No. And like for me, things like Night Haunt hurt. I remember a local player, Sean, who's spectacular. I kind of got my Sylvaneth into his big blob.
Oh no.
Went all the way in, and I think he made every 4-up. Yep. He just kind of stared at me.
Is this friend of the channel, Sean Cushing?
Yes, it is.
Shout out to you, Sean, if you're listening.
I would do it.
And I mean, he was wonderful about it. He was actually like, just re-roll it. That is upsetting. But it's things like that where the way third was set up is that could happen too often. And while when the list went off, my God, did it go off? Like there were, I mean, I played a game against Trunks when they were really good. And I was able to beat him because of like the mobility shenanigans, access to +1 to wound in my shooting, using Belthanos properly. There were all these little things, and really just being precise with movement. And Sylvaneth was a great fit. I would call it a 9 out of 10. But that feeling goes away in a meta that says, no, your Ren 3 is meaningless. That was kind of my main issue with that army. Dragons were a 10 out of 10 fit, to be honest. I would say Slaves is also a 10 out of 10 fit right now. Nice. They were a 10 out of 10 fit in the GHB before.
Omar, before we go any farther, what number did you give to Sylvaneth? Like a 6 or 7 out of 10?
No. So I would give Sylvaneth so the thing with Sylvaneth is, in the context of the meta, they were like a 7.
Sure.
In the context, in a meta that was less tuned and ridiculous, they would have been a 10. So
that's totally fair. But in the waters you were swimming in with the GHB, it was an unsatisfying 7 because your hammer scalpels were blunted. It just didn't quite fit.
Everything just felt a little too expensive, even though they had gotten a bunch of buffs. But that army was actually my favorite army that I've ever played, because watching.
Really?
Oh, I mean, I was
in that ecosystem too.
Even in that ecosystem,
still this love. That's nice.
There's something satisfying about setting up a charge where your bugs wipe out not just their screens, but like the thing they were screening because of the 2-inch and you could get some really big charges, and you have your 6-inch pile-in, and you could pile in over things, et cetera, et cetera.
All the shenanigans.
There's like
people yearn for wood elves.
Yes, and there's something satisfying about setting that up and watching someone's game plan collapse through movement by you doing ridiculous movement shenanigans and coherency abuse. And then
bugs have the extra range for their. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing.
And the other thing is, because of how triumphs worked, I think my list always capped out at like 1940 or 1950.
There you go.
So I always had +1 to wound. So on my go turn, the bugs were hitting on 2s and 2s. The bugs were hitting on 2s and 2s, and then the Kurnoth were hitting on 2s and 2s because of the character.
Yep.
And then I'd all out attack them.
That'd do it.
So between setting up all of my movement shenanigans where I can strike and fade either or, and striking and fading in a way that gets me on an objective I shouldn't have because of how overgrown terrain worked at the time. There was all kinds of things you could do that just were like, this is disheartening. I did not show up for this.
Yep.
And it just, the lethality for it to work wasn't there.
Okay.
Gotcha. So we have a couple ratings. Go ahead. Rocco.
So again, now call me crazy. I know I'm gonna be instead of the black sheep, maybe the black fish here. Why isn't Deepkin here in this kind of play style for you? Because it's got the speed, it's got the cav, it's got the teleports, it's got tricks. It's like, talk to me.
I don't. Whenever every time I've looked at a Deepkin
Get
list,
fishy with it.
well, one, I love fish,
Oh,
but
good.
two, whenever I look at a Deepkin list and the way they play,
Mhm.
there's a degree of you have to utility it properly.
Okay.
There's no like your go turn is great, but fundamentally, there's nothing that hits the way of a Vanguard hits.
Yeah, that's
Like,
fair.
like I can't look at a unit and say when that unit goes, it's
Mhm.
going to ruin my opponent's day.
Mhm.
I guess that's true. There's some units which are close. But a lot of it's
Yeah.
like
But not there
frustrating
yet.
durability, or like that could hit hard, but it's not definitely going to, or it will
It's-
hit hard, but on turn 3.
The lance is
Yeah.
wounding on 4s now. All of a sudden, kind of. I used to be able to get that shit to wound on 2s.
Yeah.
It's a whole new
Like-
world. I'm glad I get mortal wounds more often off of my Morrstar, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like like a key thing for me is I want to be able to look at my list and go, these things are going to ruin my opponent's day.
Mhm.
When the Varangard charge, and one thing about the Varangard, especially with the fight twice and the way that's worded, is I actually got my first 3-0 playing a horn guy. And what I had done was I'd gotten a charge high enough where I charged into some demons. I had pulled it was the bottom of the round. So I had set it up and measured it where
Okay.
I could pile in to have all of my Varangard be 3 inches away from his Bloodthirster.
Mm.
So I picked up his bloodletters pretty easily.
This is the way. This is the way.
Yeah.
And then everything
Bloodletters
else
on 2
fights,
wounds, too.
and then they just pop in and
Nice.
kill and pick it up. And like being able to do things like that to say, yeah, this unit should comfortably kill bloodletters and a bloodthirster in one turn and or in like 2 activations effectively is nice. And Deepkin just doesn't have that from what I've seen in my understanding of it.
It's an interesting thing, and we could definitely like at some point really got into it with the Deepkin. See if there's a bridge unit, like maybe the turtle kind of breaks that mold with its crazy chomps. But I will say, I think I get where you're going, Omar. It almost sounds like maybe in true hammer scalpel fashion, right? Or scalpel hammer, one of the two.
Whatever.
It needs to be statistically so reliable that it's definitely going to do what you're going to do. Not like, 75%, we'll see. Let's try some other stuff. You're going to pay the points premium for the no, it's 95%, unless I roll the all once. And that's how you can build your plan with the degree of precision you need. But that's also why you're overexposed, because you don't have a lot of other pieces floating around, because you need that with the points premium.
You need that elite speed and power, and you're willing to pay. Okay. Yeah, that's reasonable. That's reasonable.
And like, I'm notorious for giving people a score more on turn 1 so I can get attack on 2 fronts, and like, it's the way I math it is always if my momentum kicks, it doesn't matter. I think the best example I can give you is in Everwinter I played Madigan, who is horrifying. She had Bone Reapers, Catacross, the whole shebang.
The rules are herself.
Yeah, my Vanguard bounced. That's where they bounced. It was really sad. I spiked poorly and she spiked really well on her saves, and that was that. But it was battle for the pass. I kept her in the center. My units were just chunky enough to hold her there. My chosen did work. And what ended up happening was the warriors ended up winning me the game because they went into the horses, corn marked, while defending an objective.
There you go.
So that's 40 attacks where command points were spent to keep things alive, freaking to the chosen and to the Vanguard, etc. And now this unit of warriors is shitting out 40 attacks, 3s and 3s.
Let's just talk about how unglamorous yet effective those were, like at that exact moment in time. Because it was 3s and 3s, 1 ran, no special abilities, just
and
like
this is just 10 of them.
Waking up and making the donuts, and
I think like the horses were on a 4-up save, which went to a 5-up if I remember. It was a 4-up because of Catacross's thing. But it's like that's like I could live with a 4-up on 40 attacks. I
got volume. That's Ghoul's numbers, man. You get a bucket to dump those dice on the table.
Like I didn't kill the unit. They actually ended up dying on the retreat. But what kind of happened is
good enough.
Yeah, and Madigan had to deal with what was left of the Vanguard and the Warriors, and the Vanguard of the Chosen and Be'lakor, and the Warriors just kind of like inched up to get an objective. charged here. There were all these like little things that was like, why are you doing this? And the answer was to score. And the way the game ended was Catacross had 1 wound left. And I had pooped on her home objective. And she piled Catacross out of combat, giving me a hold more or hold the opponents and like a good scoring turn.
Sure.
Her turn rolls around. She gets her battle tactic, and the way I had like prevented her from scoring her home objective a couple of times, because Bellacore stole it once and then promptly died, as is tradition.
As you do with Bellacore.
He done his purpose. He let one last demonic gasp before it comes
back. The warrior did it, and then just the way it mathed out, I was ahead by 3 points, because even though I was tabled, I had kept her objective away from her long enough where she couldn't score enough. Okay. And by the time she got to my objective, to my home objective, it was a little too late. And she was like, okay, let's just, out of curiosity, for fun's sake, what if Catacross got that objective? I rolled a 3 on the mortal wounds when he had 2 wounds left, and she failed 2 wards. So like either way, it didn't matter.
Yep.
And there's always these little things that people forget. And sometimes your hammers don't hit, but in the Vanguard's case, it's 30 wounds, and the Chosen's case, it's 30 wounds. 30 wounds on a 3-up is a lot to deal with if you're not hitting the way those 2 units hit, which very little in the game does. So they're a hammer. They're the hammer scalpel first, but they're actually a pretty effective anvil too.
Yeah, and like you're saying too, the Vanguard are mobile enough, and how you're playing the Chosen to make up to their base speed, because you want your anvils up at least mid-table to pin people in place, if not farther, so then they can't walk past you onto objectives. That, I get it.
Yeah,
it's a great strategy.
Totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the big difference I've made in this list, in my latest iteration, is I've dropped the Theridons for the mounted Chaos Lord, because he lets you chain fight off the Vanguard. And now I can ignore strike lasts. I can get around a lot of bull, and they have +1 to wound for the whole round. So on a go turn where they fight twice, depending on when I decide to all-out attack, it's 2s and 2s. And that makes it so that instead of giving the Vanguard priority target for Honor Guard, because functionally they have that for a round at least, or an activation. Sure. The Chosen get +1 rend into whatever's relevant.
That's often the fix with them. I think I've done that more than a few times myself. So a little aside, I mean, if the debate must rage on the Discord about whether Theridons are worth it or not, you want to see a glimpse of that cow ankle, there is a way. It's called the Myrmidon. All right, back to you, Omar.
You are not wrong, and I do have a Myrmidon.
Matt, when you go to edit this, when he's editing this for the Theridon slander, it's okay. You know what? Both of you could be correct, because you play it different ways.
Matt's a Theridon convert. He wouldn't touch anything I say about Theridons.
No. But he ain't here right now.
No.
The Theridons have broken my heart one too many times.
They do that. I can't deny it. It's just like every time you deal with them in the tabletop, you're just like a little bit like, because they're in a weird space in the game.
The Knights broken my heart. You know what's never broken my heart? Warriors of Vanguard.
Yep.
They're just so consistent and so annoying.
I mean, the Warriors, I mean, I guess really Slave Structures does really fit this model you like, because of the consistency factor. Everything is just like on paper what it purports to be. And even the Warriors, like 200 points, it's not cheap, but you get 20 wounds in the 3-up with a lot of utility. And that's just the right amount of points for an anvil. If it was like 400 points for that same 10 warriors, you wouldn't touch it. It's like.
And I mean, when they were -1 to wound, they were effective.
Oh God, the Nurgle mark back in the day was.
I used to love that. Oh man.
I mean, like the first time I faced the Daughters of Cain, Marathi, I just threw a unit of warriors at her, and she was just stuck there for 2 rounds. And the person I played, she was looking at me, and she was just like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, -1 to wound, +1 to save. Just I don't know what to tell you.
They're doing their job, right? If they just die slowly and chip away through wounds a turn, like that's basically like MVP moment.
And they do that a lot. Like if if the Warriors got a little cheaper, like if I could get 20 points back in my list to have
Mhm.
another unit of Warriors, it
Oh,
would
we're
be
that
perfect.
close.
It
Okay.
would be
I
perfect.
you're speaking of the converted them. You probably remember Omar. Like last year, I ran that list with like the 3 units of 10 warriors. Oh, I fucking love that.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like Slaves to Darkness really capture that perfectly. I think Eddie, our friend Eddie Carando, who won
Mhm.
Captain Con, by the way,
Indeed,
with
indeed.
Deepkin.
Shout out to Eddie.
There you
He
go.
described Slaves to Darkness perfectly. They are an honest army.
They are. They do.
It's
They
it's
march up the
fair.
board, and again, except for Bellacor's little tricksy bullshit.
Well,
Yes,
but I
that is a
mean,
completely honest army.
the thing with Bellacor's tricksy bullshit is you know it's coming.
Oh yeah.
You know what he's going to do it on
Mhm.
because so many things buff during the hero phase, right? The number of times I've watched my opponent put all of their spells and prayers into one unit, and I'm like, end of your hero phase, right? You're like, yeah, Be'lakor, just right there.
Got his ass, dude.
And it's just like, you know this. We've talked about this, but people forget.
Yep.
Whereas the players have given you the most trouble. I got to play Noah Sang in Everwinter, and we tied. And part of the reason he was so frustrating was he was so good at spreading his buffs, but at no point was there a good Be'lakor target for me.
Oh yeah.
He gave you a lot of like B- Bellacore targets, which
yeah,
makes
but there was
total
no
sense.
A. There was no A.
No. And for me too, when I know there's a Bellacore in the ecosystem, I just double up on whatever my good hammers are, just so if one goes down, the other one's right there.
Yeah.
This is Rocco, exactly the bods, not gods ethos, right? If you have a Bellacore in your corner and someone has like 6 Vanguard or 10 shows or something great like that, it's a lot easier than they're like rocking like 10 different identical medium strength units.
Yes.
All of which are kind of a problem with
Come on, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's in like the case with our game, Jack. I think we talked about this. The biggest mistake was not putting what was the unit, the Wilder Fiend. Him not dying.
You didn't respect the Wilder Fiend the way he demanded respect.
He jammed Be'lakor for 2 rounds, and I'll never forget it.
He effectively killed him. He got him to the point. Yeah,
that's hysterical.
Heartbreaking.
Scrappy little guy. I love him.
But like my thing is, and our game is the exception, Jack, since you got a beautiful alpha strike in.
I alpha struck myself, Omar.
Yeah, you really did, and you still won though.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle after that.
But so for context, he bridged his chosen after giving them the bodyguard rule, and threw them at my chosen and Vanguard. My chosen got the fights first off from Be'lakor.
You hate to see it.
And I managed to pick up a good chunk of his because they neither of us could Dread Banner. And I had given my chosen an extra pip of rend against infantry.
Oh, it was like so dumb. We talked about it actually in the last episode, but I remember doing like the or one of the last ones, did a walkthrough of my journey with the Dare to be Dark Oath list. But like it was so funny because like it was just such an uncharacteristically like just total mind wipe. Why did I do that moment? Because like I planned out this perfect, like surgical strike, which would have been like just like beautiful. But for the fact there was a Be'lakor there, I can't really be forgiven for forgetting his rules because I had chosen as well. Who
and you had Be'lakor
and to do the exact same thing. So it's very much like a weird moment. But the funny thing about that was it worked out, I think, statistically reasonably, but not in my favor. It was like, okay, I killed half of your chosen, but you killed all of my chosen, and I'm like, crap, I got to deal with this, and it was going to be a lot easier with chosen. Not dead.
And
weird,
but and like I'll say this with my list, it's do you want to Be'lakor the chosen or Vanguard? That is the question I posed. I think with our game, the answer was easy because you would have my chosen.
Exactly.
But
and
typically
the rats killed him and all that eventually. So it was like,
but typically someone's looking at it and in the mirror match and they're like, I don't know what to do. And I actually haven't faced a mirror match, funnily enough. Like an identical list mirror match. But
sure.
If they have Vanguard, for me the answer is always the Vanguard. The answer is they scare me. I'm scared of them for a reason. It's why I bring them everywhere. I don't leave home without 6. And
good man.
When I've played other Slaves players, they've actually Be'lakored the chosen. More worried about that. Yeah. it's common because, and that's what I was saying earlier. If you look at conversations, you go to any like Discord that's fairly competitive, the thing people keep talking about is the Chosen. You can put the Chosen in the Pokeball. The Chosen are a great defensive tool with Bellacore. The Chosen do this, the Chosen do that. And I'm like, you have a unit that statistically kills everything in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything that actually survives of like 6 Vanguard charging with Mark of Horn.
Not normally, unless it has debuffs or some crazy crap.
Yeah.
Stymie you, yeah. But it's
but straight up vanilla, this coming into that unbuffed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with debuffs, right? If you have ways to get around them, like +1 to wound, all out attack, priority target, things like that, that debuff start, like, it's just, there's not much that stands up to them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thought. People forget about the Vanguard and everyone thinks about the Chosen. And
well, this is fair. I think we've had a pretty good arc so far, and kind of in your journey. Tell me if I've synopsized this correctly, Omar. But it kind of sounds like you kind of in different editions, different times, with these armies came through a lot of like 7, 8s, and 9s in terms of their effectiveness at the time to have that level of reliability, because you could do the same kind of precision strike, but you weren't getting that level of hammer reliability. And now you maybe you drop the numbers by maybe 1 or 2 things, but the things you do have are very reliable, and the combination works really well. And of course, it's proven out a bit with some of the slaves results with the sorts of lists that I've been aware of. But I mean, it works real well, and it seems like it's the epitome right now, the 10 out of 10. And maybe it'll change with the new ones, some new hotness. But this is cool.
And like, just to kind of finish on that, it's dragons in the book before the Blizzard book in 3rd edition.
Oh god, they were filthy as hell. Dude.
Well, they were filthy, but again, no one took them because the room for error was nil.
Yeah.
And I think it's so much of it comes down to scoring. And I remember talking to a friend of mine about why I was shifting to Sylvaneth from dragons. And my main issue was I'm dropping 2 battle tactics. You can drop 1. I think if you're playing a list like that, you can always drop a single tactic. You can't drop 2.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, this is good. It's kind of good to see your journey and how it works. I mean, 2 things I think would be good to make sure we kind of add in to round out our session on this topic.
Please.
1 would be kind of in your personal experience, Omar. Is there a moment, like a glaring moment you had in any army where you were like, I am now at a mismatch. I want to swerve left, and this one needs to swerve right, and just is falling apart for me. Because I think this would be illustrative for
as a Slaves to Darkness player, you're saying,
or well, I mean, it could be any of the armies, but it's basically that mismatch, right? Like if you were like this hammer scalpel, when are you like trying to do that with a blue control deck or bods not gods or something like that, having to just like not work for you? Have there been any moments like that that really like pushed you more towards this path?
Got a core memory out of this shit. What do you got?
So with Slaves to Darkness, 4th edition, it was my first game against Siege.
Okay.
There was a moment where I was like, am I playing the right army? I didn't know their rules very well. This is at the Warhammer retreat. It was actually my first loss in competitively that edition out of like, I think 12 games at that point. And
very nice.
What got me was the -1 to wound and how damaging it was, going from like a 3 to a 4.
The weird flame in that.
It just, and the way he was able to do it and set it up, and I just wasn't using my list, my units properly to screen. I was positioning myself wrong for it. I thought I could get around it. Like the attrition of it really got to me.
Okay.
But I mean, what it was is I just had to completely reevaluate how I play. Jack, you know Dylan fairly well, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you ever talk to him about playing me, the rule is the first time he throws an army at me, I fail miserably. And then the second time, after readjusting the entire way I play, I can win most times. If not,
everybody gets one.
Game. Yeah. And for me, that was my first exposure to Tzeentch.
Gotcha. Like adjustment moment.
Yeah, but I had to readjust everything from deployment to movement. It's an entirely different strategy with those kinds of lists now. But that almost broke me. I actually honestly considered trying to find a different army after that match.
So totally fair, because all of a sudden it felt like your instincts are no longer working with this
Yeah.
thing, and that's that moment of misalignment. I think that a lot of people can have that. Okay, so building on top of that, let's talk a little bit about like some of these Warhammer archetypes. I mean, we know Hammer Scalpel. What are some of the other archetypes we think people kind of jump into? Let's not use
Hordes.
the magic tropes. Let's make our own words. We have Hammer
Oh,
Scalpel to start.
yeah.
Flood the board.
Yeah, again, flood the board, bodies, not goddies, as we've said
Bodies,
on
not
this.
goddies. Yep. I mean, and
Get me a
that's
bajillion goblins. Call it a day.
yep, yep.
You're not gonna die, but I'm gonna have a lot more models on the board.
Yeah, that's definitely the bodies not goddies flooding. It's like letting you kill things with a soft satisfaction of slowly pushing your way through a moist, wet paper bag, or maybe some like not quite set paper mache to an unsatisfying end. Some of us love that style.
Yeah,
I think utility hammer is another one.
that's a good one with utility. It's just I've got this huge toolbox of spells or abilities, and I'm just gonna go and huck them out as I need onto things. Maybe supercharge your unit or just make it so that I'm just completely defensible.
Maybe there's
again,
oh,
I
go
would
ahead.
even say with attrition armies like a Nurgle, where again it's not necessarily bodies, but it's you're gonna get stuck into me. We're all anvils. If your thing is all gas, no brakes, I am just all brakes, no gas. I'm gonna sit right here in the middle of the fucking board, and I am just gonna slowly chip you down and mortal wound you as I belch in your general direction.
That's fair, and maybe they're kind of variants of each other, right? If you think about like flood the board, bodies not goddies, that's sort of like the no frills version of what you're talking about there, which is quality attrition, like sit on the circle and wait. I'm here,
Giants too. They sit on circles for as long as they can.
Yeah.
They've had better success in some editions and GHBs than others, but and I'm sorry, Omar, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I would actually argue against that. I think flooding the board and like a Nurgle style attrition are really different. Because Nurgle hurts.
I'm not the same mind.
Nurgle hurts when they hit, they hurt, and they have tricks.
Like, we're right there. We're right there together. I meant they're different because the flood the board is like chaff. It's like nothing is scary, but you can't kill it quick enough. Or like the tough plus tricks attrition is like a little more nuanced, but still resilient.
Yeah. Okay. What else we got? Speed.
Kills. Speed.
So like the speed alpha, which is sort of like not a hammer scalpel necessarily. It's more just like I'm gonna get up there with everything. It's a little more full push.
Yeah.
There's blue control deck. That's definitely a thing. Corn players.
Yes, corn play. You thought we were gonna go and say freaking high elves of some sort, some crazy. No, just corn.
Yeah. Gun line. That's definitely a big one. Yep. Magic or good old fashioned bows or billets or whatever, or maybe both. That's all a thing.
Hey, that's each.
That's each. It is. It could be the Zangar disc with the bow, because I'm going to forget the name of the Skyfires until I just say that whole sentence. It could be a bajillion flamers. If you get that right matchup though, where it's all infantry and you can just pop off, it feels great.
Yeah.
But it could be a Cities of Sigmar gun line, as crazy it is with the bajillion cannons and the handgunners, the Fusiliers. But
looks so good.
I mean, Cities of Sigmar is a great example of like a blue control deck that's also a gun line.
Yes.
Whenever Dylan explains his lists to me, I just want to cry a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they take your ability to they make it so that you're not playing the game. He is.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
That's like both like the fun of the blue control deck for the blue player and the lack of fun of the blue control deck for everybody else. Don't get me wrong, I love a little of that too. Like Bellicor does that for us in like a very pronounced direct way. But like there's such a thing as too much of that. Like last editions, like murder rolling into every little thing and locking you down, like in card games and all that, where it could sometimes be a little bit much. But yeah, Dylan's lists are just like everything's a tricksy bag of uh-ohs.
Yeah, I feel like Dylan tries to make it as PvE as possible as opposed to a PvP game. And I
play Age of Sigmar as a PvE game.
I know there are people who do that, and it's why I'm so partial to all gas no brakes, because if you're dead, who cares?
Well, it's true. If you have enough like DPS or gas, or if you want to put it, whether it's as a one a little bit as a scalpel tool for this, or a
Yep.
lot bit as a hammer anvil, you can get through, or scalpel hammer, yeah, you can get through some of that, and sometimes there's not enough time for them to pull it off, and that's one good way to beat those kind of lists. Also, shout out to Dylan if you're listening to this. Awesome, awesome descriptions of your various trickeries, but well deserved, and looking forward to the next time we have a chance to
One of my
experience them
favorite
directly.
people. Just scares me on the table.
You know, sometimes you need to be a little scared to just feel alive, you know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So Dylan's actually one of my few losses this edition. I was looking at like all my games since 4th hit, and it was my second game of the entire edition I played. I got to play him with his Beastman.
So, do it.
I'm so happy Beasts of Chaos is getting squatted.
Yeah.
That is the epitome of a PvE list.
Matt, I'm so sorry when you hear this episode.
No, don't be sorry. It's good for him. I don't even know who that is, but it's good for him.
It's okay.
Because they are so atrociously frustrating to play against.
Yeah.
For no reason.
No, I agree.
Definitely.
They got good rules right at the end before they got punted out the door. And
and I'll say a few things. Not to be negative of that game at all. It was a whole blast, but it was definitely like a whole lot of other things to consider.
That was a good take. That was a good take.
Yeah. And just so Omar, Matt, one of our other co-hosts here, was like a very old school Beast of Chaos player. He was playing them before they were good, and he actually got the faction award one year.
Well, good for him.
Yeah.
I think most Beast of Chaos players played them before they were good.
Yes. God, yeah.
It's kind of like
orcs, hipster chaos.
It's like orc players. They don't play orcs because orcs are good. They play orcs because they like orcs.
Exactly.
There's something to that.
Yeah.
Well, there is.
So I guess big thematic takeaway here is there are all these different styles, right?
Yeah.
Variations of them, so people blend them. But like
you can make your own jargon up to describe them too. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. Ours are great. Probably got to be on t-shirts, but you can also use your own terms. The important thing is figure out what you like to do, what kind of motivates you to paint all these models and put them on the table, go to a tournament. Like what like really just goes off in a tournament or even a fun game and you say, yeah, that's Warhammer for me. That's Age of Sigmar. That was amazing. Make sure that thing which you're being drawn to, like with a gravity well, is the way your army plays. Try to figure out if it wants to do that or one of these other things.
Yeah.
Because if it's not aligned, you're gonna have a tougher time.
So just to say, even if you're competitive, don't chase the meta. Don't try and force don't follow the correct advice necessarily, because it's gotta fit with your style.
Yeah.
Otherwise you won't pilot it well.
Yep. And I mean, that's the thing too, because then like someone will make a list that just works for them. It wins all these tournaments and everyone's trying to copy it. And you're like, well, how the fuck does this? Why am I taking Furies here when I could be doing this here? And if it doesn't mesh with you, it doesn't mesh with you. But
it's every little thing, right? I mean, like you gotta follow your heart. I mean, and sometimes it's not even one of the standard ones. Like I'm pretty sure that mine and maybe Matt's like favorite archetype is, contrarian off meta nonsense, because that's the most fun for us.
Yeah.
I know I played that turtle when everyone thought it was shit in 2nd edition, just because I liked the stupid narrative battalion in the book. And I brought a shark too before they were good. And then I was ready once those motherfuckers got.
We all know that as
the wheel went.
A preeminent narrative player, Rocco.
Of course, yeah.
I'm never gonna stop making that joke.
Not at all. No, and on Saturday I have it's a blind doubles event too, where we get randomly signed a partner.
Oh, that's fun.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, again, I like having fun. I don't know. I'll play hard shit later, but this is just I'm bringing my Eidolon, my turtle, and 3 eels, and just calling it a fucking day and having a blast doing stupid. Oh, and the Kron spine.
Nice.
Nice, easy.
It'll be fun. I mean, it'll look great on the table. It'll be thematic. That's good.
Few models. Don't gotta card a whole thing. And just just have fun.
Yeah, that's what this is in the end.
God forbid.
The most important thing, right? That's why we put on our pants and our gold medals and our jackets and go to play these games. Not that anyone shows up in that particular getup, but I wouldn't put it past them. All right,
we need the full tracksuit now.
I'm a little inspired by the tracksuits that Miles wore to the tracksuit GT. Yeah. Those will also, shameless plug, be up in the merch store eventually, I think. But
I think he is. Yeah,
that's amazing.
We have the weirdest merch, but you know what? We have it. You could too.
more to tell Omar about it directly here on our chat, and not so much to
Yeah.
plug it, but kind of both things. I mean,
No, yeah, no, not at all.
if you wanted to have matching jersey and booty shorts, like
we have that.
think like not so long, your legs are gonna be hot or sweaty. Not so short, you can get arrested if children wander on the game hall. They strike a good medium. It's like a really comfortable
All right.
medium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See.
Like
I'll
an
do it
old
if you
school
do it.
basketball short.
I will definitely do it. Like the next event we go to together, and
Done. We'll match.
I do have them actually.
I'm working on sculpting my calves, so I'll be ready. But
oh, there you go.
All right, I think we've come to a pretty good place, even for our always strikes late.
Yeah.
Timing.
So I'm not drunk. My camera autofocus me to hell and back. It like blurred me with my blurred background now. I'm so hopefully this stays audio and not video because I look weird as shit. But
it's like, you know, people are in a vision test where you're just like one of those letters in the lower row.
So I'm legally blind in my left hand. We're pretty fucking close to getting John vision right now.
Yeah, that's pretty simple.
It's like a really bad permanent cataract on one eye.
I was debating whether that could be the last word. Is this our tradition?
Matt, cut it there. Cut it there. That was good.